Hello everyone, good day. So I think this is our first webinar for the year if I'm not mistaken. So thank you guys everyone, for attending today's session. So today I'll be discussing about the SD-WAN Gateway. Some of you may have seen a change on our website as you browse it recently. Some of you may have seen it on our social media pages. But we've recently rebranded the EnGenius Security Gateway as SD-WAN Gateway. So I'll discuss in brief what SD-WAN is, talk about the current features that we have, as well as possibly the timeline that we have as well for future revisions on the series that we have. So what is SD-WAN? I think some of you may be familiar with SD-WAN already. Some of you may be new to it. But SD-WAN is basically a software-defined WAN, or software-defined wide area network, in which you are able to build secured connection between peers. Sorry, let me hide this window. So you're able to build secured connections between peers automatically, branch to branch, site to site. You can set it up easily without having hassles in setting it up. It's a very simple, intuitive interface in which you can easily connect different sites or different branches. So what's nice about SD-WAN is that you have full control and full visibility as well. So even if you're working with a dynamic environment, let's say environments that are continuously changing, you are able to easily adapt to it or easily apply changes. Of course, we also have the option to have it more agile, so that you can easily make changes. By the way, if you have any questions, you can type it on the chat box. You can also use the Q&A function on Zoom. I saw a request earlier to please record the webinar. So I'll be recording this session, and most likely I'll be posting this on EnGenius Academy and our EnGenius APAC page as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, just type it in. So more on the SD-WAN solution. So one thing is about the agility. So like I mentioned, EnGenius makes it faster, or SD-WAN makes it a bit faster to manage your network. With SD-WAN, you can easily add new branches. For example, you have a client who's working with a remote store, remote chain. Maybe it's hospitality, maybe it's a chain store, maybe it's a chain branch, or maybe it's different office environments that are linked together, that they want to link together. So in the past, if you're just using, let's say, MPLS or normal VPN technology, there are a lot of preparations that you need to do. First is the hardware side. Second is on the software side. So usually you would need to take note of your ISP setup as well. So let's say you have, for example, 5 or 10 branches that you want to interlink together. Maybe on HQ side, you have your server, your main server, where everything is happening. All the database, the client database, if it's a chain store, maybe you have POS information from there. So in the past, you're going to have to manually set up everything, IP addresses. If they don't have dynamic, they don't have static IPs, they're going to have to acquire DDNS services and all that just to establish your VPN links. Troubleshooting is also very hard when it comes to that type of technology. When it comes to SD-WAN, it's a lot easier. It's basically almost just a one click away in setting up new networks. If you want to establish a new branch, you just have to add it in your group, and that's it. So we have automated and easy configuration all throughout. Later on, I'll talk a bit more about that. So in setting up multiple branches and connecting different stations, in setting up, let's say, Stateful Firewall applications, it's as simple as clicking OK and apply. That's it. With SD-WAN, we also bring transparency. So it will be easier for the administrator to view what's going on. They can review all their WAN links. They can view individual branches. With EnGenius Cloud, you have team members as well, multi-tenancy, so that you can dedicate a branch to a specific staff. So they can monitor your VPN links, what's the status. They can easily view this on the map as well. I believe I have a screenshot later on, which I'll show you guys as well. Of course, with SD-WAN, you have enhanced network security. So EnGenius has this zero trust framework for SD-WAN, so that the connection between sites, between branches, or between ESGs, between gateways, are always secured with higher levels of user authentication and device verification as well. Now, having this all on the cloud would mean that you can configure everything on the same page as your existing access points, your switches. You don't have to transfer into different interfaces, or you don't have to even access the device locally just to configure everything. So you'd have everything unified on the cloud dashboard for easy monitoring and management as well. Now, let me talk about more about the functions of SD-WAN, which we currently have on the ESG 510. By the way, if you currently already have an ESG 510, that means there's no change that needs to be done in order to convert this to EnGenius SD-WAN. Basically, through firmware upgrades, we'll be adding more functions over it, and you can utilize this function right now. So one major function that we have for the SD-WAN gateway is the Auto-VPN plus NAT Traversal. Like I mentioned, if we're going to set up VPN, usually we'd have to take note of a lot of things. So here in my example, I have 3 branches. So for example, this is your HQ, maybe branch A and branch B. If I want to set up VPN, I would have to do it manually. That's the case for most of the vendors right now using a normal VPN connection. I would need to take note of the IP address on the site. I would need to know if it's static or dynamic. I'd need to know the encryption, the security, all the details. I have to make sure that all my branches are using the same type of settings to ensure compatibility. If I'm using different brands of gateway, I need to take note of that as well. Because if something goes wrong, for example, an IP change, if you're using dynamic IP in one of the branches, then you're going to have downtime from site to site, depending on how you set it up. So here, this is set up in a mesh VPN setup. So with EnGenius SD-WAN gateways, we have Auto-VPN. So that means on the user interface is as simple as adding the gateways on your networks. And from there, you just have to enable Auto-VPN. That's it. It's going to establish your site-to-site VPN for the sites that you nominate. So let's say I have 5 networks. I can assign 3 of those, or maybe all of them, to be interlinked together. It's self-healing, so that even if one of your branches is using a dynamic IP, so maybe from time to time, this ISP would refresh the IP connection. Or if the gateway reboots, it would restart as well. So the cloud system will just learn everything. So it will learn that, hey, this peer is now using a new IP address. It would pass on the information to the HQ as well as the other branch, and automatically restore that connection without any intervention from the administrator. So the downtime would be really quick. It will be very fast, and you'd have your connection established as well right away. NAT Traversal, I don't have a diagram for that, unfortunately. But basically, if you're using the SD-WAN gateway behind another router, you don't need to set up any port forwarding on your main router. You basically just have to enable NAT Traversal, and everything would be taken care of by the system. So it would learn your actual WAN IP. It's not going to use the private IP that's provided by the other router that you have in case you're using it as pass-through mode. And everything would be established as is. So I mentioned pass-through mode. So this works if you have, let's say, an existing router, and then you want to utilize our EnGenius SD-WAN gateway functions. For example, the Stateful Firewall, the VPN connections, and all that. So you can work this with your existing router. So together with NAT Traversal, essentially you don't need to do additional configuration most of the time on your existing router. All you need to do is enable NAT Traversal, and everything would be taken care of by the gateway. So everything would be monitored on the cloud. The cloud system would take care of your IP addresses and everything, and it will inform you how your connection is established. So for network topology and VPN status, you are familiar with our network topology on the cloud. So you have your links between the APs and switches. So basically now you can also see the ESG as well on there. But we also have a new topology, which is for the VPN status for mesh VPN, depending on how your setup is. If it's site-to-site, hub and spoke, or maybe a different type of setup, you'd be able to see that on the map. So here in my example, I have 3 sites. So A, B, and C. So A is currently down. B is currently connected to C. So here I can see the current information on these gateways. I can see the WAN IP, the subnet. I can also see the current usage of the link. So in a glance, I can quickly see how much traffic I've passed back and forth, what's the uptime of my link, and what's my current latency. So that will be all mapped on the map. So imagine if you're working with multiple sites, maybe international setup as well. So you can easily link all your sites together, all your branches, and have a quick review on the map on what's the status of your peers. Let's say you have a mesh setup or hub and spoke, you can quickly see that from the list. So it makes it very convenient for the administrator to review what's going on. If you have sites that are disconnected, for example, here from A to B and A to C, you can quickly see where the issue is, and then from there, do additional diagnostics from EnGenius Cloud. So our SD-WAN gateway, hello? Yeah, sorry, I think I lost my mic just now. Is everybody hearing me? Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so we also have the Stateful Firewall built in on the SD-WAN gateways. So with the Stateful Firewall, you can easily apply policies throughout your system. Inbound rules, outbound rules, VPN rules as well. So let's say you have a VPN setup and you don't want one of your branches to access specific servers. Maybe you just want them to access your database, POS, but you don't want them to access your internal NAS for this specific branch. So you can set that up easily through the firewall system. There will be an update later this month wherein you can apply the policies throughout all your branches. So that means, for example, if you have 10 different sites, you just have to apply it one time, and all those different policies that you have applied, maybe per user or per branch, per site, depending on your rules, inbound or outbound rules, can be applied to all your stations. So that makes it a lot easier for managing your firewalls and security as well. With the firewall system of EnGenius or with the ESG gateways, it's also equipped to have great throughput, despite having to use multiple firewall policies. So for the ESG 510, it can attain a maximum throughput of 2.4 or 2.3 gigabits per second or gigabytes per second of data when you are using the Stateful Firewall feature. So load balancing and failover are one of the key functions that are looked for in terms of SD-WAN gateways. So with EnGenius SD-WAN gateways, starting from the ESG 510 and all the future models that we'll be releasing, it will have the load balancing function as well as failover as well. So for load balancing, essentially if you're using multiple WAN IPs, you can have a backup if you're running it in failover fashion, or you can have them running concurrently for load balancing. Let's say WAN 1 has 1 gigabit per second of data, and then WAN 2 maybe 500 meg just for backup. So you can have this concurrently running on the background, and then the system would just automatically assess what would be the percentage in running this in round robin fashion if you're using load balancing. We also have another port here, which is a USB slot, which can work with your 3G, 4G, or 5G dongles if there are available already, to work as your third failover as well. So for sites that have maybe unstable connections with certain ISPs, so if WAN 1 fails, WAN 2 fails as well, at least you have a third backup for your USB as well. So in terms of the WAN connectivity, it essentially can accept any type of WAN connectivity from any type of ISP, whether it's a DSL connection, if it's a fiber connection, if it's a VSAT connection, that can work with our EnGenius SD-WAN gateways as well. So I mentioned that we can work with cellular failovers as well, so that you can still have data in case both of your WAN site goes offline. So for the cellular connectivity, I believe it works with almost all the dongles available in the market right now. So our R&D team have tested about 400 over dongles in terms of the connection for the ESG 510. So with the EnGenius Cloud SD-WAN gateways, basically it offers a full solution or a complete solution for EnGenius Cloud. You have your access point control, you have your switching control for the wired side, and then you have your routing control as well as your WAN control as well with the EnGenius SD-WAN gateway. So basically from the cloud you can easily apply any solution. All of our devices are integrated together. So for example, if you want to enable access point VPN in the future, one of the future features that we'll be releasing with EnGenius Cloud, you can easily just apply that and it will work with a gateway to enhance that or to establish that connection. I don't have a demo of that right now, but basically what's going to happen there is that, for example, if you want to establish that one of your SSIDs on the access point would automatically link to your HQ or to another branch if you connect to it, so that you can have a VPN access over the wireless network. So it can do that every time you connect to that SSID. While at the same time on other SSIDs you still have local breakout. For the VPN connection as well, I forgot to mention we support local breakouts as well, so that even if you have let's say VPN established from site to site, regardless of the connection type, if it's hub and spoke or mesh VPN, you can still have internet access breakout locally. So when you browse the web, when you browse the internet, it won't go over your VPN connection. It wouldn't waste that bandwidth. You can still utilize your local ISP for your internet connection. So I think from the second quarter onwards of this year would be giving you guys more information on what other future functions that we'll be releasing for the SD-WAN gateway. So from here forwards, basically all the functions that we'll be releasing for the EnGenius gateways would be catered towards the SD-WAN solution. I cannot mention some of them right now, unfortunately, but we'll give you guys more news soon. But basically, the features that we'll be releasing will be catered towards managing your WAN connections, managing multiple sites by having the HG gateways there, and unifying the control. For instance, if you want to route traffic from one branch to another, if you want to control, let's say, firewall policies, if you want to enable content filtering, so everything related to SD-WAN would be released soon. For on-the-go management, EnGenius SD-WAN gateways are also supported under the EnGenius Cloud to Go app. So that means if you're not always on your desk, if let's say you are monitoring multiple sites, multiple branches, you're always moving, you're always on the go, you can easily access the gateway as well from the app, iOS or Android. So within the app, you can view information similar to how you can view it on the access points as well as the switches. You can see the port status, you can see the WAN information, you can review the health of your network, as well as the current connections. Of course, you'd be able to do configuration as well on the go. So in case you are getting some issues, you are receiving some issues, you get push notifications, and you can do diagnostic tools as well. You can run diagnostics in terms of troubleshooting the network. With our current lineup, we have the ESG510. I believe some of you already have this gateway. In the future, we'll be launching more gateways as well. We'll be releasing the ESG320. Availability will be announcing sometime soon. So the 320 is an entry-level SD-WAN gateway. It has the same features as the 510, but all the ports are running in gig or 1 gigabits per second speed. So for sites or branches that doesn't really need a multi-gig connection for the WAN or LAN, then you would have this option for the clients as well. We'll be releasing a faster or more effective or higher capacity gateway as well, which is the ESG 610 and 620. So the 610 have higher CPU capacity, so you can have more concurrent sessions running on your ESG. You can have faster throughput through firewall and the VPN links. You can have more VPN concurrent users as well with this unit. And then for clients that are using a bigger network, maybe you have a bigger bandwidth or bigger deployment area, we have a rack mountable ESG 620. So it comes with 8 multi-gigabit ports, and then we have more PoE ports as well to power up PoE devices. Plus, you also have SFP slots on this model as well. So the ESD510 is the first model that we release under the SD-WAN gateway category. It's fully capable. All the ports are running 2.5G. So it has all the security features and function that I mentioned just now for this model. And I believe in a while Nancy will be talking about a promotion for everyone who have attended today's webinar. So all the functions that I have just mentioned plus more, which I wasn't able to cover today, is available on this model. So with the EnGenius SD-WAN Gateway, this completes or complements as well the EnGenius Cloud solution. So from the wired side, from the ISP side, from the internet side, you have your traffic, which you can monitor and control from the EnGenius SD-WAN Gateway, and then it goes over to your switches for further control or isolation into different networks that you have, and then from there for distribution as well, you have your EnGenius access points. So all these hardware will work together through EnGenius Cloud, which you can control through the EnGenius Cloud portal as well as the EnGenius Cloud to Go app. So any questions so far, guys? I think there are a few here. Let me go over them just a minute. Okay, one question is about site-to-site VPN connection. Is there any WAN condition, such as does it have to be public IP, does it have to be dynamic in order to establish site-to-site VPN? So if you are using, let's say you have two branches and then you are using ESG gateways on both branches, you don't need to use any specific ISP connection. I mean, you don't need to have a public IP dedicated to your connection. You don't need to have a static IP dedicated for your connection. Basically, with the EnGenius Cloud VPN setup, it's fully automated, so you just have to enable it. The cloud system would learn everything. It would learn your WAN IP, your LAN IP, and all those, so that you just have to basically enable and disable it. It would change a bit if you're connecting to a third-party gateway. For example, ESG 510 connecting to a third-party gateway. So that's the time that you're gonna need to use the normal VPN connection, wherein you need to manually set up your ISP IPs. You're gonna have to set up your security. But on EnGenius side, if you're using all ESG gateways, there are no conditions that you need to set up. Okay, one more question here is, if I have a branch using ESG gateway and HQ are using a different brand of firewall, can both link through IPsec tunneling? So yes, ESG gateways can link to any VPN service right now in the market, if it's a hardware VPN or software VPN, so we can link through it. We support IPsec tunneling, as well as in the near future we'll be supporting OpenVPN as well. Okay, another question here is pertaining to load balancing. So does the load balancing offer asymmetric routing? For example, using VoIP, you need the traffic to come back on the same ISP link in order not to drop packets. So yeah, for load balancing, you can specify your primary link, whether you're using WAN 1 or WAN 2. And you can also specify whether your inbound traffic or outbound traffic goes to a specific WAN IP. So you can control that using the ESG system. One question here is pertaining to VPN as well. So the branch internet surfing traffic, is it able to go out locally? So yeah, this is a common question with VPNs, because usually, for example, you establish a VPN link site to site. When you try to browse the internet, it goes through the other side as well. Meaning your traffic would go through your VPN connection. You would have a slower connection as compared to your local breakout connection. Good thing about EnGenius Gateway is that we support local breakouts. So even if you have your VPN established for, let's say, gathering data or connecting to a branch to get some files or something, you can still have your internet breakout locally, so that you can still enjoy your connection without having to go through the opposite end. Another question here, can we use LAN ports as an additional WAN port for the third ISP? At the moment, our ESG 510, sorry, let me go back a couple of screens. So at the moment, our ESG 510 is equipped with 4 ports. So first port would be your WAN 1, and then you have port number 1 is your LAN 1, port number 2 is LAN 2. LAN 3 is switching depending on how you set it up. It can either be a LAN port and a WAN port. So at the moment, for the gateway that we have, we only support 2 WAN slots. So the third one would be a dongle, which would work as a failover. Let me go back to the questions. Okay, so another question here is, how is EnGenius SD-WAN product different from other vendors like Cisco, VMware, Silver Peak, etc.? One differentiation that we have versus the SD-WAN vendors right now is the integration with the other products that we carry. Of course, you have your EnGenius access points, you have your EnGenius switches, and then the EnGenius SD-WAN gateway. You can easily integrate this all in one interface. And EnGenius SD-WAN gateways are all controlled through the cloud as well. So regardless if you're using a pro license or not, you can enjoy control anywhere. From an app, from a browser, you can fully monitor and manage your network on the go as well. So for other features that we carry for EnGenius SD-WAN gateways, I'll be able to discuss more in the future once I have the full timeline or roadmap on additional functions that we'll be releasing for the SD-WAN solution. Is the solution come with zero trust architecture? So yes, for security, our EnGenius security gateway operates with a zero trust framework. Okay, one question here is about web filtering. So do you have web filter functions? So at the moment, we have Stateful Firewall, but we'll be including content filtering as well. I can't promise any ETA at the moment as our team is still working out on the roadmap. But basically, we'll be including content filtering to have additional functions on the firewall side. For example, you want to filter specific applications from being used from internet access, or you want to filter devices to only access this specific site, for instance. So you'll be able to do that in the future. So we'll be updating you guys on the roadmap once we have it released. Okay, one question here is about there's a couple of questions from one of the guys. So any model will build in cellular modems. At the moment, there is none, but with the compatibility with our USB dongle, you can use any type of dongle that you need for your 3G, 4G, or 5G, or even LTE connections with our EnGenius SD-WAN gateways. Another question is, can we set primarily link ISPs based on jitter and latency? So at the moment, the assessment on how your links, how your load is nominated, let's say you're using a load balancing system, is assessed by the cloud itself, or the AI on EnGenius Cloud. So it assesses which link is best with the least latency, with the best connection and the best throughput in order to assess the packet. So it works in a weighted round robin fashion, and it would slowly weigh it depending on how your ISP links together. In the future, we'll be slowly adding more customization options in order to have further tweaks or a bit of customizations in case you need it in terms of your WAN load balancing. Okay, another question here is how to remotely access an access point from external without having to connect to the AP. I think this is more of a management question. Basically, with EnGenius Cloud, you can access any of your devices so long as it has internet access. If your switch, access point, or gateway has internet access, you can control, monitor, and manage it using EnGenius Cloud. The current technology that we're using is over HTTPS. If you joined in previous webinars, I have discussed the security, but I can discuss it in brief right now. So for EnGenius Cloud Security, HTTPS is the main communication method between devices and the cloud server. But over that, we apply multi-factor authentication, so that every time our devices would communicate to the cloud or vice versa, it will be secured and encrypted so that nobody would be able to hack into your network and nobody would be able to hack into our cloud server to steal clients' information or data. There's a question here or a suggestion, I think. I want to speed test each AP. So at the moment, we have a speed test function built in on the access point under the diagnostic tools, so that you're able to run speed test from what the AP is getting on its LAN port. So you can test it out. There'd be, I believe, 5 to 6 servers that are listed depending on the geolocation of your WAN link for the access point. So you'd be able to run a speed test from there. Okay, another question here is about let me see here. Can we provide internet and intranet solution along with access points to customers through SD-WAN? So yes, you can do that. So with the EnGenius SD-WAN Gateway, you can configure your internet traffic as well as your intranet communication as well. You can do filtering. You can apply certain policies so that you can define the routes and the communication path of the clients. Let's say client to client, client to server, or client to external devices as well. One question here is about site-to-site connection. Can we use site-to-site with other brands firewalls? Yeah, we can link through third-party firewalls using IPsec or in the future OpenVPN. But you would have a bit of manual setup if in terms of connecting with third-party devices. If you're using ESG to ESG, since we can monitor everything, WAN IP, local IP, and everything, security on the system, we can have a more simplified setup in establishing VPN links. With ESG connections as well, if it's all EnGenius SD-WAN gateways, you can have your auto-healing mesh links as well. Okay, another question here. Is the SD-WAN part of the free license or pro license? So the EnGenius Security Gateway have been totally rebranded as the SD-WAN Gateway. So that means regardless if you're using free or the pro license for EnGenius Cloud, you would be able to enjoy the SD-WAN functions. Maybe some functions would be catered towards the pro side, similar to how we do it on the access point. For example, some features that we have for the AP is for pro licensing, which the ones that require more utilization of the cloud service. Or let's say you require more data to be captured, then you would require the pro license. So if you want information on the differences between the license levels of pro and basic, we have this on our website as well. And you can go to our cloud site, which is engenius.ai. One question here in terms of the physical mounting of the gateway: is the gateway rack mountable or tabletop? So most of the models that we have right now are, or to be released soon, are desktop, but we have one model that's rack mountable. It's a 13-inch size, which is the ESG 620. Okay, one question here: will different ISP link latency affect SD-WAN performance on the dedicated sorry, let me rephrase our question. Will different ISP links latency affect SD-WAN performance, whether it's dedicated connection, fiber broadband, 4G, or VSAT? Yes, the ISP would affect more on your connection to the internet, I would say, or VPN links if you have different types of connections. But that being said, the bottleneck would not be on the ESG SD-WAN gateways itself, because of the high throughput that it can produce, whether you're using firewall or VPN links. For VPN connections for the ESG 510, wait, let me just double check my notes here. The firewall throughput, if you're using the ESG 510, is up to 4 gigs of data, or 4 gigabytes per second. VPN throughput is almost 1 gig, so that's a lot of bandwidth for a VPN connection. Maximum concurrent tunnels is 200 for the ESG 510, and current number of TCP concurrent sessions for the ESG 510 is 1 million. The higher models would have more capacity in terms of the functions or items that I have mentioned. If you want to check that out, it's also listed on our datasheet. But yeah, definitely the ISP would play a role in terms of how your VPN link would feel. But the bottleneck wouldn't not be on the ESG side, and of course it would always try to reestablish the connection if there is a break somehow on the system. Okay, physical ports, can all ports be WAN ports? As of the moment, you can only dedicate 2 out of the 4 ports of the ESG WAN 510 as a WAN port. For the future models, I can only confirm once they have been launched. Okay, is there WAN bonding available on the ESG SD-WAN gateways? So currently we don't have WAN bonding yet, but we have gateways that can do multi-gig of traffic. So let's say the ISP can do 2.5G of interconnection or maybe higher, then you'd be able to support that with the gateway that we have. I can't say that in the future we're gonna have it, but we'll be announcing if we do have this as well. But yeah, if for now you want to utilize faster WAN links, we have the multi-gigabit speed, up to 2.5 gigabits per second for the ESG 510. Does it work in HA mode? I think you are referring to the load balancing function of the ESG gateway. So yes, it can do that as well. Okay, so presentation slide. Yes, I can share this to our regional sales team so that they can send it to you guys as well. This is also recorded, so I'll be posting this on YouTube. Sorry, let me just glance through the questions. Some repeating questions, I'll just skip them. Just a minute. Okay, one question here about the SD-WAN gateway. Can it be monitored and set up in EnGenius Cloud without setting up any firewall policy? Yeah, you may do that easily as well. So you don't need to set up any, I would say, complex systems before running the ESG gateway. So you can easily set it up. Does the ESG gateway able to support VLANs, and how many VLANs does it support? So yeah, the ESG gateway can support VLANs. You can map out VLANs per interface. For example, you can create multiple DHCP servers under the ESG 510. For the ESG 510, the maximum VLANs it can support is 96. For the higher models, of course, it can support more number of VLANs. Can you incorporate MPLS and internet into SD-WAN? So yes, any type of connection that you have through the internet, you can incorporate with the EnGenius SD-WAN solution. Okay, one question here is about I think a scenario. So offices, they only obtain private IPs from the ISP. Having that said, does the SD-WAN solution support that? Can you still establish VPN even if you have private IPs from your ISP? So yes, we have tested this already throughout different mesh VPN architecture. So you can easily set up ESG to ESG gateways even if you have private IPs from your ISP. So the cloud system of EnGenius will determine what is the actual WAN of that ISP, because it would definitely terminate into a WAN IP. So that will be found out by the system. You can monitor the actual WAN connection. You'd also know your current LAN IP as well, and the IP that you have received from your ISP. So if you're getting a private IP, that will be listed, and then it would also display the actual WAN of the connection. So even if you have that type of scenario wherein you have private IPs provided by the ISP, then you can still establish VPN over it. So this is assuming you are using ESG gateways on both sites. It may be a different story if it's EnGenius ESG gateway to a third-party brand, because in that situation you're gonna have to specify all the IPs. Okay, question about load balancing. Can we dedicate each device to connect to a specific channel to reduce the high channel utilization to avoid congestion? I'm sorry, I think this question is more for the access point side. But yeah, for our access point side, we do support client balancing as well, which is essentially load balancing on the wireless side. So what our system does is it assesses the interference level, latency, distance from AP of the client, and all that information, so that it can justify where this client would belong. So basically, for load balancing on the wireless side, it can distribute clients evenly on a multi-AP deployment. Okay, can we manage the device locally and through the cloud? So good question right here. So all of EnGenius Cloud's hardware, access point, gateway, and switches are manageable over the cloud. They can only be managed on the cloud except for our switches. So our ECS switches work in hybrid fashion. So you can manage our switches either on standalone mode locally or over the cloud. But for our gateways, SD-WAN gateway, and access points, they can only be managed over the cloud. I think one concern when using a cloud system is, okay, so what if your cloud goes offline? So what's going to happen with my devices? Will they still run? For other brands in the market, if they are using cloud technology, most of the time they would just stall. If the cloud is dead, that means the device would also stall. No data can pass through. You cannot connect at all. So with EnGenius Cloud, the last known configuration is pushed to all our devices, switches, APs, or gateway, so that they will still run as usual. So new clients can still connect to it. Clients can still continue the connection. They can disconnect, reconnect. They can have intranet traffic. They can have internet traffic if there is on the site, even if it lost access to the cloud server. How many points can you allow for a site-to-site VPN or IPsec VPN connection? Maybe client to VPN as well. For the ESG 510, you can have a maximum of 200 tunnels for your VPN connection, and 200 VPN users for your VPN client connection. The bigger gateways can handle more numbers. If you want the specifics, you can check out our datasheet on our website as well. Another question here is, can the failover sorry, I think the question here is about the VPN connection. If you have a VPN connection established, is it self-healing? So yes, it works in self-healing fashion if you're using ESG gateways all throughout. So it'll just reestablish the connection if the links go offline. Do you support email notifications once the hosts are down? So we support different types of notifications on EnGenius Cloud. So one of them is email notification. We support push notifications as well, so you can receive alerts in real time from any mobile device. We also support report generation. Retroactive reports are supported as well. And also from the cloud portal itself, we have alerts too. If, for example, you are using, let's say, third-party NMS to monitor multiple brands, we also support SNMP as well as API to generate reports as well. Okay, I think there are last couple of questions here under the Q&A function. Thank you, Nancy, for addressing some of the other questions through chat and Q&A. Is there captive portal for LAN connections? Yes, we do. I didn't go over that today, but yes, we do support captive portal over the LAN. So that means if, let's say, you have maybe third-party access points or older EnGenius models that does not support captive portal, if you connect your wireless network, if you have enabled captive portal on the ESG, then you can prompt your splash page to pop. So whether it's for advertisement or for additional layer of authentication for security, so that is supported by the EnGenius SD-WAN gateways. Okay, for the dashboard part, does it show CPU, RAM, health status? So yes, we do have that in real time as well. I haven't seen any real-time graph in any other brand yet, but we do have that shown in real time under EnGenius Diagnostics. So you have information for the APs, the gateway, as well as the switches in real time. What are the algorithms for load balancing? Can it be configured? What are the algorithms for multi-WAN connection? Can be configured in active-active or active-passive configuration? So yes, we do support full failover, meaning active as well as a standby connection, and active-active connection wherein both WANs are being used concurrently, so that we can utilize both ISPs if in case you have that setup. Okay, another question here if I install an SD-WAN gateway at my office and I would like to access the resources from another site direct from my device, not having any other ESG gateway. So yes, we do support VPN client connections through native VPN connection software or any software that support X authentication. So you'd be able to link to your ESG gateway and access your office network from your mobile phone, iOS or Android, Windows laptops, macOS, any client device that supports X authentication. Okay, so let me just check if I missed any other question here. Okay, on the chat there are a few questions as well. I think we have time to answer that. Let me go over them. SD-WAN, can it manage many sites in terms of different devices, servers, storage, different types of server brands, and so on? So yes, you can do that. You can specify the routing as well. Can it also manage database such as Oracle, SQL, MySQL? Would you mind elaborating further in terms of managing the database? So also another question here is, do you have an option to have a private cloud, or I think own hosted cloud? EnGenius have two solutions. One is EnGenius Cloud. The ESG SD-WAN gateway is part of that. We also have another solution for on-premise, which we call EnGenius Fit. So For EnGenius Fit, we'll be launching a gateway as well, but I cannot confirm if it's a normal security gateway or is it going to be SD-WAN as well. But I'm leaning towards the um, normal security gateway. But we can give you more information once we have a more concrete roadmap for that. But at the moment, we do have two solutions: EnGenius Cloud as well as EnGenius Fit for on-prem. Okay, WAN bonding. I think I have answered that already. SD-WAN. No need to buy hardware firewall. So SD-WAN, basically the EnGenius SD-WAN gateway is the hardware, which is your controller for your SD-WAN solution. This is where you manage your WAN devices. We do not have a standalone software which can do SD-WAN at the moment, so it's built in on this hardware. Basically, it's an SD-WAN gateway, our ESG series. Can we use additional LAN ports to serve as WAN for an additional ISP? I'm seeing a lot of this request in terms of a third or fourth WAN port. So maybe I can discuss this with our HQ so that we can think about developing this function as well. Maybe I can't do any promise as well. I'll discuss this with our team first in terms of having more than two WAN ports or WAN options. Another question here is pertaining to controlling their own SD-WAN cloud server. So at the moment, EnGenius SD-WAN gateways are controlled to EnGenius SD-WAN. We'll have more information once we have the gateways launch for EnGenius Fit, but I can't promise if it's also an SD-WAN gateway or just a security gateway. Okay, this other question I've already answered. Just a minute. Okay, follow-up question regarding high availability. So what they mean by here is that can you run two ESGs at the same time on a site in case one fails? So yeah, depending on your setup, you can configure redundancy or high availability between two gateways. Definitely you can do this through SD-WAN, but at the moment we have not enabled that yet, because right now for EnGenius Cloud, per network you can only have one ESG gateway. Pro license, is that required to use VPN? No, you can freely use VPN functions, even mesh VPN, without having to run pro license. One option related to VPN that requires a pro license is Auto-NAT Traversal. So this is if your ESG is behind another router. If you don't have a pro license, you're going to have to manually set up port forwarding so that the ESG can find, or your third party source can find the ESG through your other router. But if you have Auto-NAT Traversal enabled, then it will go through another layer of routing as well. Licensing, yes, we do have basic and pro license. So the basic license in general is free to use. It's about 80% of all the functions that we have available. But if you are a pro user or your end user requires deep customization, continuous reporting, or longer reporting system in terms of generation of statistics, then that's where our pro licenses come in. One thing I want to highlight is that we don't do any licensing based on the number of hardware. For instance, even if you're using basic or the pro license, you can have as much as devices as you have. So we don't do any licensing per unit. The licensing is more on the usage of the device. If you're a pro user, then we suggest to use the pro licenses. One thing about our devices is that for EnGenius Cloud, all the models that we have, APs, switches, as well as the gateway, regardless if it's the top end or an entry level unit, come with a 1-year free pro license trial. So with that in mind, you can quickly assess whether you need the pro license or not. So at any point in time, you can switch to basic as well. So even if you don't have a pro license, you can utilize the hardware itself. Okay, so yeah, I think I went over all your guys' questions. If I missed anything, you can just drop us an email or contact our resellers, distributors, as well as our regional sales for more information. Yeah, sorry, I just want to answer a very important question I just got. So, what would happen if the device license expired? Can we still use the device? So, this question is very important because most of the brands in the market, when we talk about licensing, is tagged to the hardware. So, meaning if the license expires, the hardware stops working as well. So that's a big no in terms of any type of business, whether it's OPEX or CAPEX. So with EnGenius Cloud, even if your license expires, what's going to happen is that each device still has a basic license. So you can still use the basic features with the device. You can fully use the function of the hardware without having to have any license as well. So don't worry about licensing too much. So I think about 80% of deployments would be more than happy to use the basic features that we have on the cloud. If you're a pro user, you're that 20%, then that's the time that we recommend to use the pro license. We have a breakdown on licensing in terms of what features are enabled under the basic and pro license on our website. You can check it out. But if you want to test out if you really need a pro function, we also have free licenses for all the devices that are purchased. So any device that you register on your account would have a 1-year free pro trial license. So no limits there. The only limit is the duration. If you want to continue to use the license, you can just purchase from our team. But if you're happy to use the basic version, then you can just revert to the basic license. But in any point in time, the device would always be usable for you guys. So I just want to highlight that. Thank you. So I think that ends our session today. We'll be having more webinars in the coming months, especially with our this year. We have a lot of products to launch. So thank you everyone for joining this session. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.